We're going to be talking about some basic commands that you're going to be using frequently in AutoCAD. So I have here the startup screen in AutoCAD, and I can do this. I can actually go and start a new template or work with the ISO template. So this is one of the things that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be working with the ISO template for now, since it is a template that you're going to be working with throughout this term. So I'm going to click here in the startup to choose this. And once I do that, I have the template opening with me. Now, one of the things I need to take a look at is the units. So in the command panel here, I'm just going to click and type units and enter. And as we said, since we're using millimeters, we really want to be sure that the precision here is going to be set to 0. So I'm just going to click here and set this to 0 because I don't need any other fractions. And I'm going to click OK. Now, one of the first things that I'm going to be looking at here is the line command. Now, we can access the line command by two ways. But before making sure that you have the command panel here open, if you accidentally close this, okay, you're going to have a window coming up saying that you can press Control +9 to retrieve it. So accidentally, if you just click here, because we always want to have the command line with us, because the command line is going to tell us what to do in terms of the steps that we need to do to execute the operation that we're creating. So I'm just going to say no, because I don't want to close it. But if you accidentally close it, you know that you're going to click on Control 9 to bring it back. Okay, now, as we said, two things that we need to do to be able to execute the line command. I can click here on the line command, or I can type L and click enter on my keyboard. Okay, once I click L, you can see that it brings up all the command that starts with an L letter. Okay, so here is the line command, because we pressed an L, and every other command that is starting with an L letter. All right, now AutoCAD expects that whenever that you type anything, that you click enter on your keyboard, so the command is going to be active with you. Now, it's specifying you to specify the first point. The first point can be any point here on the screen. Now, this screen is actually infinite. If you click on the scroll, or if you click on the middle mouse wheel, okay, you can see that it is an infinite screen. The X and Y here is the X axes for the horizontal lines, and the Y axes for the perpendicular on the X, which is the vertical lines. Now, to specify the first point, what if I want to start my first point from here, from this origin point where the X and Y meets? Well, we can type actually, and when you go to type, you don't have to place the cursor here. So whenever that I want to place the first point, I have two options. I can actually indicate where exactly from the X and Y I want to place that point, or I can type this in. And again, whenever that I hover over, I'm hovering, I'm not clicking. Whenever I hover over here, you don't have any, you don't have to place the cursor just in here. You can even see the cursor is far away from the command line, and I can type on my keyboard 0, okay? And I'm gonna press tab. Tab is going to switch me to the other point, because I need a point on the X and I need a point on the Y. And I'm gonna click 0 again and click enter. So this means that I started my point from the origin point. Okay, so that's the first point that is specified. Now, to get out of a line, I can press escape, all right, on my keyboard, and I didn't execute the command yet. So for now, I want to turn off actually the grid. The grid is on the status bar here, and I want to turn it off because I don't want to just display this just yet. So I'm going to click here. And right now you don't have any grid to stick to. And I'm going to go to click on the icon here. So I'm just going to click on line. And once I click, it's asking me to specify the first point. We specified the first point by 0, 0, but we're going to pick any point here in the space. So I'm just going to click and then I'm going to drag. Now, while I'm dragging, you can see that I can put an input. Okay, so if this line, for example, is, let's say it's 5,000 millimeters, which is about 5 meters. So I'm going to type 5,000 and click enter on my keyboard. And I already specified one line. Now, if I want you can see that the line is a rubber band command, meaning it's going to continue working with me until I tell it not to. So if I want to create something else, okay, maybe in this direction, I'm going to go with 3000 and click enter. And then if I want to close that shape, the command is still working with me. I'm just going to hover over this point here and notice what happens. We're going to talk about the endpoint right now. You might not have that square, which is referring to the endpoint. But if I want to close the shape, I'm just going to go to the status bar and turn off the object snap and turn off the object snap tracking for now. All right, so we're just left with that. Now, if I want to close the shape, okay, and I don't have an indication of where the shape ends, you can take a look at what do you have here. You have close and you have undo in the command line. So here, if I typed C and enter, okay, without those two tools, which are the object snap and the object snap tracking, which we're going to be talking about in just a second, we managed to close that by typing C and enter. Okay, so I'm going to do that again now with the line command. I'm going to click on line. All right, I'm going to click anywhere, click and drag. So I'm clicking and dragging. I can click and drag horizontally if I want to. All right, I'm going to type 4000. Okay, and enter. And then I'm going to go up, and you can definitely scroll. Scrolling the middle mouse wheel is very important with AutoCAD because you can definitely zoom in and zoom out when you need to. So I'm just going to go up, and I'm going to type 2000 and enter. And then I'm going to go to this side here. All right, I'm going to type 4000. And now if I want to go down and close the shape, you can see that on the command line, I have close, okay, operating. So I can click on close if I want to. And immediately it's going to close the shape, or I can type C and enter, and this is going to close the shape for me. So that's the first thing that we need to know about the line command. What you can do is creating the basic rectangular or polygon shapes, as we can see now. So that's basically the first tool that you're going to be working with all the time. The second tool that we need to explore is the circle tool. Circle tool is very intuitive. I'm going to click on circle here. And once I click on the command, you can see that it's asking me to specify a center point for the circle. So I'm just going to come here, click, okay, and drag. Now, when I click and drag, you can see that you can specify the radius of the circle or the diameter. In my case here, I'm specifying the radius. So I'm just going to type 1000 and enter, and the circle had been created for me. All right, so basic shapes with the units or with dimensions, we created them by using the circle and the line command. Another important command is the polyline. If I want to execute the polyline, I can click here and type P line. So PL for P line. And once I do that, you can see that it's bringing all the command that's starting with PL. And P line is the first choice. I'm just going to click here, and it's asking me to specify the first point. So I'm just going to click and drag, clicking and dragging, as we said. And I'm going to type 6000, enter. And then I'm going to go up. I'm going to type 4000 and enter. And then, well, what what if I want to go this way? What if I want to go this way and create, instead of a line, I need to create an arc. Now you can see here that we have, I'm just going to move the command line a little bit up so you can see that we have arc, okay, one of the choices that we can do. So this means that the command actually can start with a line and then we can switch to creating an arc, okay? So with an arc command, if I clicked on arc here, okay, to continue this as an arc, I'm gonna click on arc, all right? And as you can see, once I do that, I'm creating, instead of a line that goes into that side, I'm creating an arc. Now, this arc is asking me to specify, as you can see on the screen, it's asking me to specify an endpoint of arc. So the endpoint means that I specify actually the diameter, not the radius, it's the diameter. And if you remember, we created this line here below and it was 6,000. So this means that the diameter of this arc is also 6,000. So I'm going to type 6,000 on my keyboard and click enter. Okay. Now, if I want to go back or close that shape, all I have to do is go and click on close here. All right. But before I do that, the trick is I need to make sure that I am clicking online, because if I close this, if I clicked here, if I want to go back, I'm still in the, you can see I'm still in creating arcs. All right. I'm not creating any lines and I need to close that shape. I need this to go back to a line command, not an arc command. So the first thing I need to do is to click here on line. All right. So if I'm back on line, I can click on close. And after I click on close, this is going to close as a shape. Okay, so the polyline is a very powerful tool because you can actually create or switch between arcs and line in just a second, instead of drawing the line and then switching to create an arc or half circle or an arc. All right, now the other thing, the next thing that we want to explore here is the arc command. Now the arc command, you have so many ways that you can create an arc command with, and we can click on start, center, and end. But before we do that, we need to actually activate a very important feature on the status bar that is going to help us to locate the start and center and end of the arc. So to do that, if I click here on the object snap, and the object snap, actually, if you right click with your mouse, you can see that you can snap to objects using the endpoint of line, the midpoint of a line, the center, the intersection, the extension, and the ability to be perpendicular on a certain line. Usually, the most important ones that we use more frequently are endpoint, midpoint, center, and perpendicular. And to show you how important that is, I'm just going to turn them off for now. All right, all of them. And then I'm going to create a line. I'm going to click on line, and I'm going to assume that I want to create a line exactly in the midpoint of this line segment. As you can see here, when I hover, I don't have really an indication of where to place this line that I'm going to create. But if I click on the status bar here, I'm going to click here to turn it on, to turn object snap on. And once I click on it, I can do two things. I can actually, I'm going to close this for now. I'm going to click to turn it on. All right. And I'm going to click on the endpoint, and I'm going to click on the midpoint. Now, as you can see, the object snap symbol is for the endpoint is the square. And here for the midpoint, it's the triangle. So I selected those two. I'm going to click OK. All right. And now it is turned on. Now, after I hover over, you can see once I hover over here, okay, and I'm still with the line command, I'm specifying the point where I want to create a line. If I hover over here, okay, I have the endpoint. If I hover over here, I have the midpoints. So if I click and drag up, I can even snap to the midpoint of that arc that we created earlier. Okay, so I'm just gonna go like this, and then I'm gonna click again, and as you can see, I have the rubber band still working with me. If I don't want to specify another point, I'm going to click escape on my keyboard, and I created a line exactly in the midpoint and made those two, this shape into two halves. So this is done by turning on the object snap. It's very important to make sure that you know that this is turned on whenever that you want to start another shape or create another shape, okay, using the points on a segment. All right. Now let's start doing the arc command. Since we turned this on, okay, the most important thing, as we said, is that we have those 2 points that we have. We have the endpoint and we have the midpoint turned on because we're going to be using them a lot with the arc command. Because with the arc command, we need 3 points to be able to decide on that's how arcs are created. They are created using 3 points, and we need to make sure that those 3 points are identified before we start creating the arc. So I'm going to click on the first one, which is the start, center, and end. Okay, and you can access them from here. So if I want to create an arc with you want to make sure that you click on to expand the options for creating an arc, and the options mean that you have. The option means that you have this this arrow. Okay, so this means that you have options, a lot of options to create certain shapes. So in our case, we're going to click on start, center, and end. I'm going to click here to start my arc. And then I'm going to click here on this as my center point. And you can see that, you know, the arc in the command line is specifying each time that I click on a point, it's specifying the next point, what the next point should be. So it's asking me to specify the center point for the arc. This is the center point. And then it's asking me to specify the end point. Now, just in case you don't have the direction of the arc in the right way, see they are saying hold control to switch direction. So in our case, if I don't want the arc to be created on this direction, I want it to be created on the other direction, I'm going to click on control, and this shifts, okay, this to a different direction or the opposite direction. Okay, now in my case, I'm working well with this direction, so I don't need to click on the control, and I'm going to click here. All right, and voila, you have created an arc. So those are the main commands that you're definitely going to be working with. And mainly, we need to make sure that we know those by hand and we practice those as much as possible so we can execute a lot of shapes. Now, another thing that we need to talk about when it comes to the line command or creating shapes in general is the direction. We need to make sure that whatever that we're creating is exactly in the is exactly horizontal or vertical in the X and Y direction. And the way to do this is to make sure that ortho is on. Okay, so in the ortho mode, I'm going to click here, and if I click on the line command, okay, and I'm going to click and drag. Now notice that the rubber band isn't going anywhere except in the X direction or the Y direction. And this is because ortho is turned on. So ortho is going to always maintain a 0, okay, or 90-degree angle at all time for our lines. So now if I click and drag, so I'm gonna type 5,000 on my keyboard, and then I'm gonna and this means that I still have the rubber band again going into this direction. I want to create a square. I'm going to type 5,000, and then I go back 5,000 again. Okay, and then I want to close the shape. So C and enter, and we just close the shape. So this was briefly an introduction to the main basic command in the draw panel. We're going to continue in just a second. Hopefully you can go and just try those commands before we continue our review of the 2 commands that we're going to cover more today, which is creating a polygon and creating an ellipse. All right, so now we're going to talk about creating a polygon. The first polygon that we can create, and a polygon means it's a shape with equilateral closed segments. So we have 2 options. We have the rectangle option and we have the polygon option. So the rectangle option, if I click on it, all right, this means that I can create a rectangle without having to create the line command. Now it's asking me to specify the first corner point. So I'm just going to specify the first corner point. I still have my object snap working with me. I'm just going to hover here, okay? And maybe I want to start a rectangle from this point. So I'm just going to click, all right? And I'm going to drag. Now, when I click and drag, you're going to see, I'm just going to click and drag here, that you do have two values that you can put here. You have this value. Take a look at the value that is changing in blue, which is on the X. So the first value that you want to enter a numerical value for it is the X direction. It's always going to be the X direction. So I'm just going to type 6,000 and enter. All right. And you can see that I created a rectangle just here. Now, is this really what I want? Well, no, because I needed to specify the X and Y direction, and this only specified the X direction for me. So I need to go back here in the rectangle command, okay? And I'm going to click here and drag. Now, once I click and drag, all right, because it's asking me to specify, it's taking the Y value for granted, which is a 2020, 238. And then it's asking me to put a dimension for the X. Well, I don't want that. I want to put the dimension for the X and for the Y. So for this, I'm just going to go to dimensions here or type D on my keyboard, D and enter. All right, now D is asking you to specify the length of the rectangle, as you can see here. So the length, okay, this means that the length is the X. So I'm just going to type maybe 2000 and enter. And then for the width, which is the Y direction, I'm going to type 3000 and enter. Okay, so as you can see, I managed to put the value for the rectangle. All right, and the only thing that is missing right now is just clicking, okay, to like this to end the command. But you can see that with dimensions applied, I managed to put in the X and the Y. I'm going to do this again somewhere here. So with the rectangle command, I'm just going to click. And once I clicked on the rectangle command, it's also going to be executed here by rectang. I'm going to specify the first corner. So the first corner is here, for example. I'm going to click. Once I click, it's asking me before doing this, before putting the other point or the other corner point, I'm going to click D on my keyboard and enter. Nothing is happening. I don't see my lines. That's fine. That's very normal. Okay, so I need to specify the length for the rectangle. I'm going to type, for example, this time 5,000 and enter. And then it's asking me to specify the width, which is the Y direction. I'm going to put 4,000 for the Y or the width, and I'm going to click enter on my keyboard. And immediately you're going to see your rectangle created. The only thing that you need to do, which is asking you on the specify other corner point, because this means that it needs to specify which direction the rectangle is going to be on. As you can see, we can create a rectangle that is 4,000 by 5,000. On any direction of those. So specifying the corner point means that I need to specify a corner point on that side or on that side or this or that. So in my case, here is fine. I'm going to click and this ends the command. Okay, so very important to note how we can, don't forget that we can create a rectangle using dimensions for the X and Y by clicking on dimension. Rectangle. Okay, this is the command here. And then specifying the first point. And then before doing anything, okay, I'm going to click on dimensions. And with dimensions, I can specify 3,000 for the X and then 2,000 for the Y. And then picking the direction like this.